Coming up in this video, I'm going to share with you how and why I use focus stacking in my landscape photography. I'm going to use software by Helicon Focus. At the end of this video, you will have seen how easy it is to create photographs just like this. So stay with me to the end. Don't forget to subscribe to keep up with all my latest videos. Okay, so hello, good morning. I've, as I said earlier, sort of on the voiceover coming over in the car. The idea today was to sort of come out and try a little bit of focus stacking and take you through a full process. Before we get into the focus stacking though, obviously I've got to find a suitable location, so I've just been doing a little bit of walking for the past sort of like half an hour, 20 minutes around this area, just to try to find some viewpoints. Now it's not really been that successful, to be perfectly honest, so I've decided to stop here for a moment, just take the camera out, get the lens on the camera and try and just sort of compose a few different pictures and just see if there's something there which I can that I can feel sort of happy with and think that we're going to work on. So it's ideal weather for like waterfalls and everything, so you can probably hear that in the background, that there's quite a lot of moving water, so that's looking pretty good. So with a bit of luck, a bit of slow shutter speed work, some focus stacking, and like the overcast weather as well, I should be able to sort of render the water quite well without sort of having too many burnt out highlights or reflections which are causing me any problems. But if there are, I'll try and deal with those, and I'll explain to you how I'm going to deal with them as well. So I'm just going to get Ruby sat down here somewhere comfortable, make this sort of my base area, set the camp area up, and we'll see what we can take. I must admit, I'm going to probably be swiping my face most of the day. I'm getting a little bit annoyed already with the midges, but you know, that's one of the downsides of early morning and evening photography in the summer. It's something that landscape photographers get used to dealing with, and that's just the way it is. So I'll be back with you in a moment after I've managed to finally sort out exactly what it is I'm doing and what I'm looking at. Okay, so I've been, midges again, sorry. Okay, so I've been walking around just taking a few different compositions and trying to work out what it is I like. Now I've decided on the composition behind me. Now I'm going to zoom in with my lens and sort of compress some of the perspective a little bit and stack up some of the waterfalls behind each other. And that's why I wanted to use the focus stacking today, because I've got this idea in mind how the image is going to look. I've just taken a picture just to sort of like see what sort of shutter speed I can expect and how it's going to work out. So I'm finding I can get roughly what I want, about f8, which is kind of the right sort of aperture for the sweet spot on this lens. So we might do a few brackets as well. We might shoot at f8, f11, maybe even 5.6, just to see what the different exposure looks like. Now, one of the reasons for using the focus stacking is that basically what's going to happen is that when I stop down to f8 and I zoom in, my depth of field is going to be really quite limited. So what I'm going to do is stack the images one on top of the other, and by doing that then I'll be able to sort of maintain that depth of field, because I want front to back sharpness in this picture. I want it to be really quite a crisp, clean image right the way through to the background. Or at least, you know, the waterfalls crisp right the way back through to the background. Like, I may blur the last image, but that's something I can do creatively in post-editing later on. So what's important here is to get a set of images that I can take away, edit, and work with, and they work really well. I'm just hoping all this audio is coming out, because it's really quite noisy here. So I may have to resort to doing a little bit of voiceover later on, just to try and sort things out. Now, I've brought the coffee and the tea with me, so I think it's time to give Ruby a treat for being so good, and make ourselves a tea and a coffee, and then get this set up, and we'll be good to go then in a minute. So, okay, I've sort of roughly set up the tripod where I want it to be, and I've got the camera ready. Now, when I'm shooting in this sort of location, really, where things are a little bit precarious and I have to balance on rocks, etc., I like to get as much things ready as I can. That's one of the reasons I'm wearing my outdoor vest today, so it means I can carry a lot of bits and pieces of equipment on my person. I don't want to get sat over there on the rock in a minute and then have to sort of think, I need to clean the lens, or I need something else, or I need a filter or an adapter, and have to come back and sort it out. So that's what we're trying to avoid. Now the flies are a real problem. It hasn't suddenly turned into being really, really cold. It's just that actually this is keeping them from going down my neck and my back, and it's sort of much more comfortable than it is. So I'm going to set the camera up on here. I've already fitted my lens to the camera, which I'm using the Canon 24-105. I'll give you some more details when I'm not being eaten alive by bugs. I've got the remote release on there, and I'm going to be shooting at about f8. I'm going to be, let's say, focus stacking, so I'll be taking about 3 to 4, maybe get away with 2, but certainly 3 pictures each time at different focus points, and then combining those in photo editing later on. So I'm going to explain what I've taken and why I've taken those particular photographs later on, because just trying to video it and film it down here all at the same time isn't really going to work. So I'll talk you through roughly what I'm doing as I'm doing it, but basically the details off the back of the screen will follow later on when I can actually show you that on the back of the camera. Okay, so let's go and have a look, see what I can get down to. That's just a test exposure that I've just taken. Okay, so we've shot the images we wanted to take. It really was quite uncomfortable with all the bugs and flies flying about. I got little bites all over my hands, over my face, camera, the lens, everything was covered in it. I know Ruby's a bit uncomfortable, so just eating flies. So I'm going to aim to sort of pack up now, get rid of these fly bites, and I'll see you at the editing screens later on. Okay, so here we are finally once again back in the office, and now we can have a look at editing the images which we took right down by the waterfalls earlier. Now before I do that, I'm going to explain to you a little bit about this part of the video and what it is and what it isn't. So it's not a product review, but I should go on and say that basically I approached Heliconsoft a few years ago about the software that I was using, Helicon Focus, which I was using a trial version at the time, which is still available, and I wanted to promote it and use it at my camera club lectures that I do, and they were quite happy to provide me with a pro license. So that's the first thing. I am kind of supported with them in a small way by being able to use their software for free, basically. So thank you to them for that. Now I wouldn't have reached out to them to use it unless I was really happy with the software and the results that I was getting. So I'm not kind of afraid to say that to you, because I don't really do product reviews or just randomly support software if people approach me or anything or whatever. It's only stuff that I actually like using and use in my own photography. So let's have a look at the images that we're talking about. So I've opened up the images in Adobe Bridge, and you'll see on the screen here that originally where I sort of take a number of images, I put my hand in front of the lens to mark the beginning, and this is the reason for it. I can now see that the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 images are the ones which I want to use in this focus stack. So I've already selected them, and the reason I've done that is that to put them into Helicon Focus, which is here on the right hand side of the screen, where I've just moved them to. It's very easy to add them. You just drag them across and basically drop them in there, then they appear in that part of the screen. So let's open that up full screen now so that we can actually see it. So the screen, when it first opens up, it will show the images as you click on them in the center of the screen, and on the right hand side you've got the 7 source images that we talked about. They're all ticked at the moment, so we could select or unselect the ones that we want to use in the focus stack as required. So we're going to use the retouching in a minute, and we're going to use the saving in a minute. I never use the text and scale. If you wanted to use that, then you could look it up on the help files on the Helicon Focus website. And to be honest, if we just click onto there now, look, there's a really good website which they've got themselves. It's got all their instructions, all their information on it, and there's nothing really there which I could add to. So it's better if I just leave you to look at that website and that page if you want to do it yourself. I only really sort of like use the software at a very minimal sort of level. It can go into some really detailed close-up, macro and beyond photography for people who use that, who follow that theme. Sorry, try again. For people that enjoy close-up photography, you know, it's really sort of for them. For what I do in my landscape photography, I basically use it so that I can control things within the image. So I'm going to give you an example. So this image I've shot at around f8, and I've done that because I wanted to hold the shutter speed at a certain setting. I didn't want to have to go bigger on the aperture to slow it down, and I didn't want to go above ISO 100 to let more light in. F8 was ideal. F8 is also the sweet spot for the lens that I was using, and I was using a longer focal length lens and zooming in, so my depth of field maybe wasn't quite as much as I wanted it to be. So for that reason, focus stacking allowed me to focus on maybe this rock in the foreground, then come across to this one, pick another one up over here, pick a bit up over here, and finally pick something up on the background and get that stack of images together so everything's nice and sharp when we join it together. The other thing we'll look at before we actually render the image is that there's some raw development settings. So if we have a quick look at those, we'll see that basically we've got it set up to give us raw in, DNG out, color space is Adobe RGB. There's a number of different settings that are in there which you could use. You could use OS Extra RAW, you could build in built-in RAW DC RAW loader. You could use different color spaces, different things as well. So, you know, you can use that if you want. For me, Adobe RGB, RAW in, DNG out works well. And the reason that works well for me is because it's the general color space that I'm working with in Photoshop, and also DNG files allow me to open them up again in Camera Raw. So they just fit back into my normal workflow straight after I've finished. Now there's 3 rendering methods. There's a weighted average, a depth map and a pyramid. Now I don't necessarily understand exactly what these do, but once again, if you look on the website, it'll show you which ones are best to use. Now I happen to know that weighted average works well for my landscapes, and it works well with this image. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on weighted average. We'll render that right away. And you'll see down the bottom of the screen here on the left hand side, it's starting to do the work now and put that image together. So whilst it's doing that, what we'll do is we'll think about going into, it's done it already, look. So we're going to go into retouching. Before we do that though, we can just have a general look at the image. Now when I put the cursor on there, you'll see that it's actually coming up with some text at the bottom. And what it's doing is it's telling me what image underneath the mouse pointer it's actually using in that part of the picture. Now when we come to retouching, that becomes really quite powerful, because if I, for example, wanted a picture with a fairly blurred background, there you go, that's changed now. So we've got a blurred background on this picture, and what I can use is I can actually paste that across to this side of the picture. So if I wanted to blur this background, we'll open up the size of this pointer just so you can see it change a bit more on the screen. I don't know if you can see that as we're doing it, but we could paint in
very easily painting from there the blurred background. And that's why I do it, because it's actually really quite powerful. So now I'm just painting in those bits in between, and obviously if I was doing it on a proper image, I would do it much better than this. And if you were doing it yourselves, you would go right into a pixel level, zooming in and looking at the detail. And you can zoom in. There's some controls down here to zoom in much closer, so you can look into the detail of the image itself, and look at, go in much further and do it closer up. But basically, once you've done that and you're happy with it, we can output it and save it. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to go on to saving. So when we click on saving, there's a number of different options. You can save as a project file and come back and work on it again. You could share it straight onto Facebook, publish to the web. You could copy this to a clipboard and then paste it into something else. You could export all the layers and open that up in Photoshop. And there's things about depth maps, animation, 3D models and all sorts. But basically, my landscape photography, I just want to save it. Now I'm not going to go into details of where it is, but I could click on here and I could save it into a different folder or wherever I want to use it. We're going to leave it in Dartmoor stream stacking and save the image, and it's as easy as that. That's a fully focus stacked image. Black background has been painted back in, so it's slightly more blurred than it was before, and it will basically output that image for me now and save it on the screen. What I would do then, and in fact I've already set this up already to make it a bit easier, is I would just go into back into my into raw file. So I go on here, for example, I could go into work in progress, Dartmoor photo stream stacking, and then I would be able to open up the raw file there, no problem, and it will come up, and that will come up in Photoshop like any other raw file, and then I can open it and edit it and do whatever I want. So I hope that's been useful. Hope that's sort of given you an idea of the way in which you can use these images the way in which you can use Focus Stack in Helicon Focus to work in your landscape photography. So let's just edit and let's just get out of that a minute. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. You can help me out by subscribing. Don't forget that you've got to click the bell icon as well to get those all important updates. Give me a thumbs up or down. Please comment below. Most of all, enjoy your photography, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.